I was recently talking to one of my inner circle members who's spending about $30,000 a day, and he was asking me about creative testing best practices. And I'm gonna hand down some lessons to you in this video today from that conversation and from what I generally follow myself as a high spend advertiser for any kind of high ticket product or service. I want to be really clear when I say this video, I'm going to start off in some ranges. We're going to talk about what to do sub $1,000 a day. We're going to talk about what to do when you get to about $5,000 a day. And then we're going to wrap it up talking about what you should do with $10,000+ a day in ad spend. We are going to go through those best practices in this video today. And we are going to talk about the #1 ad channel where the most money gets spent, Facebook and Instagram. We'll also pepper in some general lessons along the way for YouTube, and a lot of these same lessons are also applicable for good old TikTok, hoping that thing stays around and doesn't get banned here in America or wherever you live too. So for all those unfamiliar, my name's Jeremy Haynes. All we talk about on this channel is hitting $1 million month. Welcome in if you're new. Every video on this channel you're gonna find tremendous value in. Make sure you go check some of those other ones out after you watch this one here today. And of course, if you're already a subscriber, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you. We're here today on a jet. No, the jet is not mine. I'm unfortunately not rich enough for that yet, but I am rich enough to broker them. I just left Tai Lopez's farm. Hopefully you've watched that video on my channel. I was sitting on the back of a pickup truck in the Virginia mountain right after I just left Ty's farm, and I had given some lessons on some of my favorite lessons I've learned over the years from Mr. Tai Lopez. So here on the jet today, coming home to the motherland in Miami, we're going to be talking about creative testing best practices. It was such a high impact conversation for this specific inner circle member that I had, and I'm going to tell you where to get started at. So again, if you are at $1,000 a day or less, here's what you want to do for that. So first of all, it depends on if you're just getting started or whether you're already in motion. I'm assuming that you're already in motion if you're on this channel. Even if you're technically just getting started, this still is going to be applicable for you when it comes to paid advertising. You need to have a good head on your shoulders when it comes to videos and images specifically. Those are the two main ways that we can test things. Videos and images. Now, to be clear, there are a few pro tips that I want to make sure I pepper in that are going to be applicable across the board for all ranges of spend. #1, AI tools. So AI tools allow us to do a bunch of cool shit nowadays, and depending on what you sell dictates which AI tools might be most applicable for you. So as an example, the newest one that just came out from Google, it's called VO3. Holy shit, is VO3 awesome. But it's not really that awesome if you suck at prompting. What we found is you obviously only can create clips up to about 8 seconds long currently. And if you go in there and you fuck around with it, you're likely gonna have problems having the same character inside of every video. So what you have to be able to do is you have to essentially work with other LLMs to be able to create a whole, like a director, like a movie director, like a writer and a producer. You got to be able to create a whole plot and a storyline, and you got to be extremely descriptive with who the characters are, what they look like, sound effect, lighting conditions, environmental conditions, obviously the script of what's happening. There was a guy who just recently, he had an ad, I forget the name of the brand, but he had an ad that was so well executed. It was for some gambling site, kind of like Polymarket, but some alternative shit. And the ad got approved to run during the NBA Finals. You know, it was such a good ad. How did that guy write that, script it? He didn't just write it up himself. He used tools like Claude or even ChatGPT or even Gemini as an example, using Google's other variation of LLMs to be able to help create this in the depth that's necessary for the prompting to actually get VO3 to work. We had a different inner circle member, not the guy that's doing the $30,000+ a day testing. His name's Ewan, and Ewan has an offer. It's a biz op opportunity where he's helping people use AI to create PDFs and sell those PDFs online. That's his biz op. Now, Ewan made a baller. It was an absolutely baller VO3 ad. It was about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. He was getting, listen to this shit. He was getting a 2.2 to an 11% unique outbound link click-through rate with the VO3 ads that he created, okay? Now, whether you're sub $1,000 a day, like Ewan was in this example, or whether you're at $30,000+ a day, VO3 and just being able to make a great fucking video ad, that can have a tremendous impact on your ability to generate low cost per result. Remember, the whole outcome, like the whole idea behind the intention behind creative testing is to find winners. And what is a winner defined to be? What does a winner really mean? A winner means we have a high outbound link click-through rate, which generates us ideally cheap CPMs and a phenomenal cost per result. Okay, when we have shitty click-through rates, unique outbound link click-through rates specifically, we're going to have a bad time. Our costs are going to be dramatically higher than they'd otherwise be if we had a dramatically higher unique link outbound click-through rate. So that's the goal. Okay, I'm going to also give a quick shout out. There's a whole bunch that you can use, but Arcad has been phenomenal mainly for high ticket products that are able to leverage like AI UGC creators. And I want to also give a shout out ChatGPT, if leveraged properly, specifically, I think it's their 04 model or 4.0 model, whatever the current one is at the time I'm making this video. They introduced image generation. It's the same thing. Like you can get really shitty images out of it, or if you're fucking prompt god, you have the ability through prompting to get really, really remarkably good images, but it's not super applicable for high ticket services from what we've found with images. You can make great images through it, but we find the people, I should say the businesses, that benefit most are the ones who have high ticket products when it comes to images. So I want to be clear when I say this. As an example of your personal brand, right? And you have a person that leads the business. Generally, videos are going to be your best friend. The images can be phenomenal too, but generally you're going to get the most conversions with the most well-framed people with videos. If you just have a faceless business and it's not a person that leads the pack, you should be really good with testing images and videos. So that's kind of what dictates your ratio. Like some businesses, you can have a 50-50 ratio in terms of the percentage of which ones are going to work best for you. Again, if you're a personal brand business, you can typically see upwards of 70 and 30, where you're going to have 30% of images work well for you, and they have a purpose and they have an intent, but you're going to have a much higher effectiveness at leveraging video. Now, in almost all businesses and brands, no matter what level you're spending at, when it comes to making the actual images and videos, that's where most people really suffer. They don't have a creative team that they have hired internally in their teams, and therefore they don't have like a repetitive system that's just constantly churning out creatives, right? The goal is to have a creative surplus, okay? You want to be in a position where you always have more than enough. You don't ever want to be in a position where you're running behind ad fatigue, okay? As an example, if the current creatives that you're testing are failing, you need to immediately be able to cut that shit off and launch new ones in place of the turd. But to launch new ones in place of the turd, you need to have new ads sitting on standby, ready to launch with. One of the biggest problems that businesses have when it comes to creative testing is whatever the fuck they make, they just immediately feel the need to go and launch. That is a silly, dumbass way of thinking. What you have to do instead is, again, you have to have the goal of a creative surplus. I want to have so many creatives that even when I have so many creatives already created, I go and create even more creatives to add to the surplus, okay? Ad fatigue is a bitch. At higher levels of spend, the surplus has to grow. You understand? So long story short, you want to be in a position where you're constantly churning out new stuff. It's like a great example of that is this exact set of videos I've made here on this jet. It's like I'm like 3-4 weeks ahead right now on my YouTube schedule. I don't need to be that far ahead, right? This exact video is just going to sit there for a few weeks. A lot of you fucking tweakers out there would feel the need to immediately go post this shit once it gets done, right? That's not how it works. I want to be in the position where if something happens to me, if I get sick or something, or if I just don't feel like making a video on a particular day, I don't have to. So when you get the opportunity, it's like go and intentionally have a schedule. You need a schedule, okay? You need something you could follow that makes it easy to get videos routinely churned out and to get images routinely churned out. And you need to have awareness, right? Data is what drives creative decisions, okay? You got to be able to reflect on what works and what doesn't work, and you got to be able to have a look back on what sucked and what had a high click-through rate but got shitty people through. What had a low click-through rate but got good people through. And I typically see this work best with people who have strong organic brands. They have strong organic brands because they've learned hook iteration. They've learned how to generate attention consistently and well with stuff that they post for free to get reach consistently. And they've really mastered hooks. The people that typically do best with creative testing are the people who understand the 3-step process of what you're trying to iterate on. You have a hook, you have the body, and then you typically have the CTA at the end, all right? These are the 3 things that you should have a goal to create iterations around. We had a guy, he joined into the inner circle. He was already at $2+ million a month. And what he did to get to about $12,000 a day in spend was he kept the same body and the same call to action for a little over 2 years. And all he would choose to iterate was the first 3 to 5 seconds of the ad. That was it. He would take the exact same body, the exact same CTA. And this was a guy who's pushing heavily into cold audiences. And all he would do was hook iteration, right? For years, for 2+ years, that's all this man did. And it worked until it no longer worked. It got him all the way up to about $8,000 a day where he was successfully getting the spend off. But once he got to about that, again, that additional $4,000 a day, it really only spun the wheels. And so I emphasized, I was like, look, man, I mean, it might sound really simple, but one thing that you clearly need to focus on is iterating this back half of the creative too. You need to look back. This guy probably had, without exaggeration, hundreds of hooks that he could look back and reflect on in terms of cost per conversion, quantity of conversions, and of course, unique outbound link click-through rate. And by looking at those, he could then determine, all right, let me start with these opening hooks and let me change these back half so they come off as new creatives. This is also a really good time to emphasize something critically important, which is, what do the social platforms want? Right? They want new content, and therefore they also want new ads. What they hate is when you try to run the same exact ad for long durations of time. I won't sit here and say I haven't had ads that have ran for years in a row successfully and haven't fatigued, but that's not normal. What's much more normal is that your ads are going to fatigue after about a few weeks in most instances, at higher levels of spend. Like as an example, once you get to like the 5K plus a day and you're in that range of spend, and even 10K plus a day, it's kind of the same thing, but on shorter time spans. The ad fatigue cycle short, okay? So as an example, when you're like sub $1,000 a day, you might be able to get away with like 3 to 8 weeks of being able to run the same stuff before you see fatigue, all right? And fatigue, I want to be clear, that means our cost per result climbs and our result volume declines. Fatigue can also look like you have the same cost per result, but you see a degradation in audience quality coming through the other side. So if you all of a sudden have really shit leads coming through and they're all unqualified, that could be symptomatic of ad fatigue as well. And when you have ad fatigue, the solution is you duplicate out that campaign or that ad set that's fatigued. You ideally pull out all of the images or videos in there and you relaunch brand new stuff in place of it. There's plenty of ad fatigue best practices that I cover in programs like my Inner Circle offer and inside of my Mastery Internet Marketing community. It's one of the #1 topics that comes up. Essentially, it just erodes your profitability. It's one of the #1 things that results in a drop in ROAS. It's a huge problem. It's absolutely worth you paying to figure out how it works in depth so you never deal with it again. And all the best practices that relate to ad fatigue protocol, check out the links down in the description of this video. The Inner Circle's for rich people already trying to get a fuckload richer, whereas the Master Internet Marketing program is tremendous for people who either don't want to pay me more money because you don't trust me enough yet, even if you qualify for the Inner Circle, or if you're just sub 100K a month, the Master Internet Marketing program is phenomenal for you. Now, to be clear, back to my point, ad fatigue at 5K plus a day or 10K plus a day is tremendously faster. As an example, I had a campaign that was at 35K a day. That campaign was fatiguing every 3 to 4 days. That means every 3 to 4 days, I had to relaunch the campaign. I had to relaunch the ad sets within that campaign with freshies. I had to go in there. Think about the speed in which most of y'all wouldn't even be able to keep up with that. You wouldn't be able to relaunch it with brand new shit because you fail to use AI tools, you fail to be able to film stuff, and you fail to have an internal creative department or an agency creative department that's just constantly keeping you in a creative surplus. So simply put, the volume of creative, this is what's really important to understand. The volume of surplus goes up in demand the more that you spend, okay? So the more ad spend, the more creative surplus you need, all right? So remember, don't be a tweaker, okay? You want to be in a position where you got all kinds, remember, it doesn't have to be a lot. It's like you can go down, film ad. Let's say you film 10 ads, okay? Totally unique. Unique hook, unique body, unique CTA. It's like most people won't choose to break these up into pieces, right? These can be individual components in themselves. I can film ads where I have 10 hooks that I film. All right, these 3 things are really important you understand. Let's say I film 10 hooks, all right? Then I film 10 body, and then I film 10 CTA. It's like this combination together, it's like one hook can pair with all 10 bodies. All 10 hook can pair with all 10 bodies, all 10 CTAs, and I can interchange them like a little set of puzzle pieces. It's like right there, if I'm not mistaken, I have hundreds, if not 1,000 of individual combinations of creative that I just made as a result of just filming 10 hooks, 10 bodies, 10 CTAs. I then hand that off to an editor and I tell them what I've done and I tell them to mix them in together. Now watch this. Let's say I also have an approved B-roll folder, all right? That also then allows me to mix in a bunch of other combinations. So it's like, think about the quantity of combinations I can create if I just have a motherfuck load of B-roll on top of 10 hooks and 10 body and 10 CTAs. It's like now you took one film day and you maximized the fuck out of it, right? Even if I have a client that films, let's just say 10 ads, it's like, well, those 10 ads, regardless of whether they followed this process or not, still have these three main components. They still have 10 hooks, 10 bodies, 10 CTAs. We can still clip those out individually and mix them in together. We can also do that with every historical creative we've had that have worked. But the point I'm trying to emphasize is these platforms, like, you never log on to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn even, that fucking shithole over there at LinkedIn, and just see the same exact content every time you log in. What do you get served every time you log into these things? New content. So why the fuck would you think these ad platforms would want to see anything different from you? Why would they let you just run the same creative for so long? Why does fatigue occur? A lot of people think it's because the people who see the ads got tired of seeing the ads. That's not true. It's the platform punishing you for running the same ads for too long. That's how it works. I want to be fair in saying it can still be because the people see it too often. That can absolutely be the case. But algorithmic creative fatigue occurs far more often than people seeing it too often fatigue ever does in comparison. So anyway, I digress. When you have this combination, right? And this is really where the differences lay in spend levels. So if I spend sub $1,000 a day, I don't need a fucking 1,000 video creatives. That's far too many. I might need like 30 to 50 sitting in there in my surplus. Because I'm realistically at sub $1,000 a day, I'm realistically gonna launch, let's call it somewhere between like 10 and 20 different ad creatives. When I'm at like 5,000 plus a day, I'm likely gonna launch somewhere between like 30 and 60 ad creatives. When I'm upwards, like the guy who was at $30,000 a day, I told him, I was like, listen, here's what you're gonna do. Campaign, ad set, within the ad itself, put 100 individual ads in there and see if it gets unique spend. Put like 100,000, put as an example, that 30,000 a day, put 10,000 a day towards that testing campaign and see if it's enough to get unique reach between those 100 ads. If you see a specific set of ads start to see a bias, meaning they get reach and the others don't, then break it out into multiple ad sets. So have a campaign, and instead of having one ad set, have two with 50 ads and 50 ads. And again, see if we get unique reach between our 50 ads. And if we still don't, no problem. Campaign, 4 ad set, ABO. I'm gonna have 25 unique ads. And I'm just gonna keep breaking them out until, and again, it might be smaller than that. Instead of 25, I might have even less that I'm gonna put into a smaller ad set. My goal being, I'm attempting to get a relatively equal amount of reach. I wanna be very fair in saying, not every ad that you launch deserves reach, all right? There will be a point where even if you break it out small enough, where there's like 5 unique ads in an ad set, not every asset you load into it will get reach, all right? And that's okay. That is a signal to you that although you might fuck extremely heavy with that specific combination of creative, that doesn't mean the platform does, buddy. You gotta be in the position where you have willingness to detach, right? I'm not looking for attachment when I'm running ad creative, right? I'm just looking for winners. And you got to know your hit rate. Here's the other super pro tip, and I'm going to leave you with this, and then I'm going to go and enjoy my flight and recover my voice from yelling on this loud ass jet. You got to know your hit rate, all right? So this guy I was talking to that had the 30K plus a day in spend, his hit rate, meaning how many out of his total creatives were winners, right? He had a 6.6% total hit rate, which meant out of 100, 6 to 7 would be winners, right? Think about that. That means out of 100 individual ad creatives that this guy's running, this poor guy's only going to find 6 to 7 of them that are actually good, right? Really think about that. So most people's going to kind of be interpreted as shitty, right? But when you know your hit rate, you're not going to be thinking to yourself, oh man, I need to launch 10 ads and 6 of them are going to be good or 8 of them are going to be good. No, that would actually mean that technically in that scenario, maybe 10 fail and you need to launch another 10 and then maybe 10 out of those fail. You understand? It's like if you had a 6.6% hit rate, you're going to go through a lot of creative testing before you actually find some winners, right? And winners are typically then pulled out of your creative testing campaign and put into a winning campaign. And inside of that winning campaign, you're obviously only going to have winners. You can have those inside of their own ad set. You can have a giant ad set full of a bunch of winners now that are now competing against one another. But typically with your winners, you want to make sure that you actually have a good enough amount of dollars going towards them. So in most instances, and I'm not going to tell you this, you're going to pay me to tell you this, how to actually structure the winner campaign, right? Because you want to make sure that there's enough spend going towards the winners once you actually find them, especially when you have a 6.6% hit rate like this guy did. So moral of the story, this is a lot of the best practices, but of course, like usual in all my YouTube videos, I held back a tremendous amount of information from you, and I leave it for my paid program, which you can find links for down in the description. This is still going to be quite helpful to you and very beneficial. I'm sure you pulled enough value to, at the very least, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and to go check out some of my other videos. Every video on my channel is dedicated to helping you hit, or I should say, try to hit $1 million months. The hit rate for $1 million months is sub 0.1% of all businesses that are on earth. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says that 0.1% of any business has a probability to get to $10 million a year, let alone the even smaller percentage than that ever achieve $12 million a year, aka the big $1 million months. That shouldn't dissuade you. That shouldn't make you feel like it's not possible. It is possible, just with a really small hit rate of being possible. But either way, every video on my channel is dedicated to taking the lessons of businesses that have been there, done that. By the way, this specific set of lessons that I covered with this guy that was spending 30,000 plus a day, he's clearing about 3 million plus a month right now on that spend. Phenomenal return, phenomenal results. So again, welcome to the channel if you're new. Thank you for being here. If you're already a subscriber, go check out some of my other stuff. And of course, per usual, go get rich. Talk soon.